For most people, the name Paul Walker immediately brings to mind his role in Fast and Furious, where he portrayed Brian O'Connor, an iconic character in the famous car-tuning franchise. This role was his golden ticket to a Hollywood that had welcomed him warmly from a young age. His stellar performances in the industry earned him various awards and a steady, clean reputation with each film he appeared in. He also had Vin Diesel, a co-pilot in life, who was always there for him, even after he was no longer around. The thrill of racing and the adrenaline rush of flooring the gas pedal brought him joy, both in the franchise and in real life. His love for high speed was such that he even avoided using stunt doubles in his films. In Fast and Furious 6, he tore his ACL attempting a difficult scene. But that wouldn't be his only accident. As if a warning, he once mentioned in an interview, "If one day speed kills me, don't cry." I was smiling.
My dream car is the Carrera GT, or Porsche Carrera GT, I think. That's the top car.
And that's how, on November 30th, 2013, at the peak of his life, he lost a race against death. At just 40 years old, Paul Walker died in a car accident. Let's dive into his story and I'll reveal the entire truth about his accident. Just a quick pause here to mention that if you enjoy documentaries and mysterious stories, you can subscribe and hit the notification bell to see more content like this on my channel. Paul Walker was born in Glendale, California, but he grew up in Los Angeles. His father, Paul Walker III, was a professional boxer who won the Golden Gloves twice before becoming a contractor. Paul had 4 siblings, an older brother named Khaled and 3 younger ones, Cody, Ashley, and James. After his death, 2 of his siblings would go on to do great things in his memory. But let's not jump ahead. Paul was raised in a very conservative environment, as his father was Mormon, and the whole family joined the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. His first appearance in cinema came with the movie Monster in the Closet in 1986. This initial step into film laid a strong foundation for his career. He went on to star in major movies and even ventured into modeling and advertising. Both the cinema and television industries opened doors to an incredible world for him, and at a young age he was already a recognized actor. Walker graduated in 1991, and after high school he attended various institutions to specialize in marine biology, one of his earliest passions. He earned a professional degree, inspired by his admiration for marine explorer and researcher Jacques Cousteau. He balanced his time between studying, acting, surfing, practicing martial arts, and modeling. His modeling career saw him promoting the Coty Prestige fragrance and Davidoff Cool Water. Before achieving true fame, he worked in marine biology, joining Expedition Great White, a National Geographic series where he spent 11 days on a boat trying to catch and tag 7 great white sharks in Mexico. When Walker wasn't traveling, he split his time between Huntington Beach and Santa Barbara, California. Paul had a brief relationship with Rebecca McBrain, with whom he had a daughter, Meadow Rain Walker. She lived with her mother for her first 13 years and later moved to California to live with her father, who had gained full custody by then. Paul was highly dedicated to his role as a father. In an interview, he mentioned that he once turned down a summer job offer because he prioritized time with his daughter, and he expected the producers to understand that. In another interview, he stated, "I like my profession, but I don't like fame. I'd love to wake up one day as an unknown, to go out with my daughter, go to a park, and not be bothered. That would be wonderful." Between being named one of the world's most attractive men and his passion for collecting sports cars, Paul Walker was someone who genuinely cared for others. One example was in March 2010, when he traveled to Constitución, Chile, to offer his help and support to those injured in the 8.8 magnitude earthquake that shook the region on February 27th. Another mission with his humanitarian team took him to Haiti to assist victims of the earthquake that had struck the country. Just as his primary role in real life, he was a big fan of cars, especially racing cars. His love for speed was so strong that he even competed in the Time Attack series, racing in a BMW M3 E92 as part of the performance team. He had an impressive collection of cars, but it wasn't to show off. He collected them purely out of passion. The collection was made up of over 30 cars. I won't name them all, but it looked like a museum, with unique models like a Ford Mustang GT500, GT350 SR, and several fierce 911 GT3 RS models. Then, to top off the beauty, there were BMW M1 and M3 models, as well as Porsche 911s from the 70s and 80s. Fate, however, had it that he would meet his end in one of his favorite models, the Porsche. Among his collection were Ferraris, including a Ferrari 360 Challenge Stradale, a 365 Spider, and a Testarossa. It's impossible not to think of the phrase he said at the beginning, "He likely died with a smile on his face." But the truth was that no one expected it. On November 30th, 2013, at just 40 years old, his life came to an end due to a tragic car accident.
Fast and Furious actor Paul Walker died from a combination of traumatic injuries and burns. That's the finding of the LA coroner. Walker died Saturday when the Porsche he was riding in crashed and burst into flames. Coroner Ed Winters said Walker and the driver died within seconds of the crash. The coroner ruled those deaths accidental.
The news spread worldwide. Nobody could believe it. Paul Walker had died in a car crash, just like the close calls he'd acted out in movies. Roger Rodas was driving the car, and Walker was the passenger. They were headed to a charity event organized to raise funds for victims of Typhoon Haiyan in the Philippines. With few witnesses, the Carrera GT collided with a tree on Santa Clara Avenue and then burst into flames. The Fast and Furious star passed as he had predicted. There weren't many people around to see what had happened, but quick conclusions weren't far off. The first rumor was that he was in a street race, similar to the movie scenes. The investigation into the accident took 2 long years before the case was closed. I'll discuss some theories later that delayed the investigation, but it was eventually confirmed that the primary cause of Paul Walker's death was speed. But that wasn't the only factor. Theoretically, the vehicle in which he was traveling lost control at speeds above the limit before crashing into a light pole and some trees. Moments later, it caught fire and burned. The bodies of both men were completely charred, making it even harder to determine the extent of the injuries caused by the crash. So, what else played a role besides exceeding 160 kilometers per hour? Another factor that worked against him was the terrible condition of his tires. It seems Paul had bought the Porsche secondhand, but it was relatively new, with only 5,500 kilometers on it. The problem was the tires. They were the originals from the factory and had aged out. The street where Walker and Rodas crashed, located in a block full of industrial parks in Valencia, California, is a hotspot for street racers, according to a California Highway Patrol officer. This led to speculation about a second car involved in a race. After extensive investigations and questioning of people who worked and lived near the crash site, the findings remained the same. All witnesses had only seen the red Porsche on the road. How could it be that a car built for speed couldn't stop? Following the crash, Paul Walker's daughter, barely 18 years old, decided to sue Porsche for negligence. She and her family argued that the vehicle had several defects that could have contributed to the actor's death, including a failure in the fuel circuit, which caused the car to explode and catch fire after impact, and a possible malfunction in the seatbelts. Unsurprisingly, Porsche denied the claims, and after investigations, it was concluded that the primary cause of the accident, apart from the tire condition, was speeding. Another legal battle began as Porsche claimed the car was traveling at 151 kilometers per hour, while Walker's family lawyers asserted it was between 101 and 114 kilometers per hour. Ultimately, Porsche and the Walker family reached a confidential settlement, likely with a substantial payment, for the family to drop the matter. In addition to the potential $1 million sum, Paul Walker's daughter also received a $10.1 million settlement from Roger Rodas's family, as he was driving at the time of the crash. In April 2016, a judge dismissed the lawsuit against Porsche that had been filed by Rodas's widow, marking the end of the legal saga. A tragedy, a failed lawsuit, and a substantial payout for the families of those who died. As well as receiving financial compensation, Paul Walker's daughter was supported by his Fast and Furious family after his passing. Vin Diesel, who had been like a father figure to her, became her legal guardian and godfather. She grew up surrounded by the co-stars of the franchise, who embraced her as family. Paul Walker's legacy continues with the non-profit organization he founded, the Paul Walker Foundation. Earlier, I mentioned people who thought differently from the official investigation. Various theories circulated, though you might say, how true could any of them be? Some U.S. media outlets, especially the more sensationalist ones, claimed Paul Walker might still be alive. One theory suggested the car in which Walker allegedly died had been rigged with pyrotechnics, the kind used in films, and that the accident was staged to fake his death using special effects. Fans and theorists claimed that mysterious photos surfaced showing a man with a green cap who resembled Walker, fueling speculation that it could be him, especially since he was seen near film sets. One example took place in March 2010 when he traveled to Constitution, Chile, to offer help and support to people injured by the 8.8 magnitude earthquake that struck the region on February 27th. Another journey with his humanitarian team took him to Haiti to assist victims of the devastating earthquake that shook the country. In real life, just as in his role, he was a car enthusiast. Not just any cars, but high-performance race cars. His love for speed led him to compete in the Time Attack Racing Series, driving a BMW M3 E92 with Performance Team. He even had an impressive car collection, which he cherished not for show but out of a true passion. The collection included over 30 unique cars like the Ford Mustang GT500, GT350 SR, several fierce Porsche 911 GT3 RS models, and rare BMWs such as the M1 and M3, along with 1970s and 1980s Porsche 911s. His Ferraris were also notable, including a Ferrari 360 Challenge Stradale, a 365 Spider, and a Testarossa. Fate, however, took an unexpected turn. On November 30th, 2013, at just 40 years old, his life ended in a tragic car accident. The news of Paul Walker's death shocked the world. The American actor, famous as the lead in the Fast and Furious series, died in a violent car crash. Roger Rodas was driving the car with Walker as a passenger. They were heading to a charity event organized to raise funds for victims of Typhoon Haiyan in the Philippines. The Porsche Carrera GT they were in collided with a tree on Santa Clara Avenue and burst into flames. Initial rumors suggested they were racing on the street, much like scenes from the Fast and Furious movies. It took 2 years to investigate the accident before closing the case. Ultimately, the main cause of the crash was determined to be speed, though other factors were involved. The car was reportedly traveling at over 160 kilometers per hour, and the poor condition of its tires played a role. Walker had bought the Porsche secondhand with only 5,500 kilometers on it, but the factory-installed tires were still on the car at the time of the crash. Santa Clara Avenue, where the accident occurred, was known for street racing activity. Yet, after interviewing locals, investigators concluded that no other car was involved in a race with the Porsche. After the accident, Paul Walker's daughter, just 18, sued Porsche, claiming negligence. Porsche denied these claims, maintaining that excessive speed and worn tires were the primary causes. Eventually, Porsche and Walker's family reached a confidential settlement, rumored to involve a significant financial agreement. Besides this settlement, Paul Walker's daughter also received a $10.1 million settlement from the estate of Roger Rodas. In April 2016, a judge dismissed a similar claim made by Rodas's widow, closing the case. Walker's loss was deeply felt by his Fast and Furious family, who treated his daughter as part of their own. Walker's co-star Vin Diesel took on a guardian-like role for her. She grew up surrounded by Walker's friends from the movie franchise, who offered her support as she continued her father's legacy through the Paul Walker Foundation, a non-profit organization. Theories about Paul Walker's death circulated, some speculating he might still be alive. Sensationalist media outlets suggested the accident was staged using special effects. There were claims that Walker had compromising information involving high-profile U.S. figures, obtained through his foundations. Hacktivist group Anonymous even suggested Walker's death was suspicious. The 9th installment of Fast and Furious references a conversation Walker's character had with Dom Toretto about the 10-second car. In the final scene, there's an empty seat at the family dinner table, left for Brian. A familiar engine sound cues the arrival of Brian's iconic blue Nissan GTR, leaving fans to imagine a heartwarming reunion with his friends. Rumors suggest that the 10th and final Fast and Furious movie will bring together Dominic Toretto's family and Brian O'Connor one last time. Like in Fast and Furious 7, Paul Walker's presence could be made possible with CGI and performances by his brothers, Caleb and Cody Walker. Fans eagerly await the final chapter to honor and say a grand farewell to Paul, a beloved figure whose legacy lives on.